Welcome to this week's virtual Drasha. This week I have the incredible privilege to be able to share with you these words from Yerushalayim Ira Kodesh. And although interestingly enough in Eretz Yisrael, they're up to Parshas Matos. We in Chutz La'aretz are a week behind in Parshas Pinchas. Share with you an insight from the end of Parshas Pinchas. The end of the Parsha goes through the section of the Moadim, the section of the Yom Tovim, going through the sacrificial order of each and every Yom Tov. And the Parsha concludes with a discussion of Sukkos. But the truth is, the discussion of Sukkos ends with the discussion of Shemini Atzeret. The Torah says, this is in Parak Lamed, Pasuk Lamed Hey, chapter 30, verse 35. Payoma Shemini Atzeret tialochem. On the 8th day, it'll be an Atzeret. We'll leave that word undefined for just a moment. Komaleches avoda lo sasu. Don't do any malacha. Don't do any types of forbidden labor. And then the Torah goes on to describe par echad, ayil echad. You go out and you offer up one bull, one ram, 7 lambs, a much smaller sacrificial order. This is the Yom Tov of Shemini Atzeret. So the interesting question is, what does that word Atzeret mean? So Unkelos says, interestingly enough, Kinesh Yehi Lechon. It's a day of gathering. Rashi understands it a little bit differently. Rashi says, Davar Acher, Itzru Milotzes. Atzeret means to stop. That although when the Yom Tov of Sukkos is over, it would be tempting to return to normal life, Shemini Atzeret comes along and Shemini Atzeret says, stop, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere just yet. Just for now, stay where you are. Stay where you are. And Rashi then goes on to say something so beautiful, that over the course of the Yom Tov of Sukkos, we offer 70 bull offerings. Those 70 offerings corresponding to the nations of the world. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, when all of that is over, Bilakasha mikem, asuli su'ude kitana. Now that we've taken care of the nations of the world, make for me a small little meal, just for you and me, just for you and me. And Chazal used the lashon that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Kasha alai predaschem. Kasha alai predaschem. Ultimately, again, it's difficult. Actually, the next Rashi on the pasuk says that as well. Kasha alai mashal melech she'asa su'uda. It's comparable to a king. Ultimately, again, who made a su'uda for his family. It's time for the family to leave. And the king says, Kasha alai predaschem. Don't leave just yet. Ikvu od yom echad. Go ahead and stay for one more day. Stay for one more day. Stay for one more day. And the imagery is so beautiful. So the Yom Tov of Sukkos, which is almost like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to a certain degree, a connection to mankind. The 70 bull offerings corresponding to the 70 nations. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, it's been beautiful, it's been wonderful, but my children, I've been so close to you for all of these days. Stay one more day. That's Shemini Atzeret. Atzor. Don't go anywhere. Stay where you are. Kasha alai predaschem. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zikr Tzaddik V'Kadosh L'Vracha, asks a simple question. He says, Aaron, what do you mean, Kasha alai predaschem? What does it mean that it's difficult for me, predaschem, your dispersion? It should have said, predasenu. It's difficult, our dispersion, or our disconnect, or our separation. In other words, the imagery that Rashi is painting over here is a king who's with his family. Kadosh Baruch Hu is the king, we're the family. The family is about to go home. The king says, don't go. I don't want to be separated from you. Kasha alai predaschem. So the Rebbe says, but that's not the right word. It's kasha alai predasenu. The king should be saying to his family, my separation from you, our separation, my separation from you, your separation from me, this is what's difficult. Predaschem doesn't mean our separation. Predaschem means your separation. And here the Rebbe says something absolutely beautiful. He says, Kasha alai predaschem is HaKadosh Baruch Hu talking to Klal Yisrael. And he says, when you're in shul together, Rosh Hashanah, you're davening together, ki ishecha b'lei v'chad, with one person, one heart. When you're in Yom Kippur and you're fasting and you realize that everything is being decided for the year, there's such a sense of oneness. You come to the Yom Tov of Sukkos v'samachta b'chagecho. It's ki ishechad b'lei v'chad, like one nation with one heart. There's such incredible unity. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I know what ends up happening when Yom Tov is over. All of Klal Yisrael retreats to its own corner. Remember, Sukkos, there was a mitzvah of Aliyah L'Regel. There's only one Beis HaMikdash. There's only one Beis HaMikdash. There's one address where all of Klal Yisrael has to come. The Beis HaMikdash is the glue for the nation. And there is nothing that makes HaKadosh Baruch Hu happier than having his children together, that achdus within Klal Yisrael. And when Yom Tov is over, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows that unfortunately, there's the possibility that factionalism may set in again. That's why he says, Kasha alai predaschem. What's difficult, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to me, is not my separation from you or your separation from me. A Yid, a Jew, is never separated from Hashem, and Hashem is never separated from a Yid. We're always together. The disconnect sometimes is a disconnect we have with one another. Kasha alai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, what's most difficult for me to see, what's most difficult is predaschem, is your separation from one another. That's what causes me pain. So I'm going to throw in another Yom Tov. I'm going to make up another Yom Tov. We're going to call it Shemini Atzeret. It has a very small sacrificial order. It has no unique mitzvah of the day, but it has one stated and intended purpose: to keep my children, to keep Klal Yisrael together for just one more day. Why? Kasha alai predaschem. Because it's difficult when my children don't get along. It's difficult when my children fall into a factionalized way of life. It's difficult when my children don't know how to disagree agreeably. It's difficult when my children fight with each other. It's difficult when my children don't realize that we are all of Am Yisrael, all of Klal Yisrael is all on the same team. You know, there's a beautiful Gemara, Masechah Shabbos, famous Gemara, the Gemara of the Ger, or I should say, he's not a Ger yet, but he's the Gentile who wants to convert. There's 3 stories in the Gemara. The last story is the convert, potential convert, comes to Shammai. He says to Shammai, teach me Kala Torah Kula al Regel Achos. Now we translate it as standing on one foot. And Shammai chases him with a 2x4. Get out of here. Get out. What kind of craziness is that? You want to learn all of Yiddishkeit on one foot? Get out of here. Gei Gesundheit, as they say. Get out. Get out. You're obviously not serious. He comes before Hillel. Says to Hillel, teach me Kala Torah Kula. Teach me everything on Regel Achos. Literally on one foot. And Hillel says, okay, what you don't want done unto you, don't do unto someone else. That's it. That's Kol Torah Kul. That's everything. Everything else is just a commentary. And the great Tzaddik Rabbi Salah of Rajin says, what's the pshat? What's the pshat, the deeper meaning of this schema? What is this guy coming along and saying, teach me the entire Torah on one foot? It doesn't even make sense. And the Rishner says something so beautiful. He says, no. The guy was coming along and he was saying, teach me Kol Torah Kula about the one regel. See, this guy was saying, I've been studying and I've been looking at the Yom Tovim and I understand Pesach and I understand Shavuos and I understand Sukkot. I get it. There's one Yom Tov I don't understand. It's Shemini Atzeret. So the candidate for conversion was coming, teach me the entire Torah al regel achos, not standing on one foot. There's one regel, there's one Yom Tov I don't understand, Shemini Atzeret. What is it? What is it? So Shammai didn't understand. Shammai thought he was literally saying, teach me Kala Torah Kula, standing on one foot. So of course, legitimately, he gets rid of him. Hillel understood that he was asking about the regel achos, the one Yom Tov. To which Hillel responds, you want to know what Shemini Atzeret is? Madesane alecha lechavercha lo savid. What you don't want done unto yourself, don't do unto others. Or in other words, the entire essence of Shemini Atzeret is v'ahavta l're'acha kamocha, to work on our love for one another. That's the essence of Shemini Atzeret. And dear friends, it is not an accident or a coincidence that we read this parsha during the 3 weeks. Because the truth is, what is our avoda during these days? Our avoda is to work on our avas Yisrael. Our avoda is to work on our love. And when I say love, I don't even mean like warm, effusive feelings of love. Just a feeling of acceptance for the other Jew. It's easy to love and to accept people who are like you, who look like you, who practice like you, who dress like you. But that's not what it means to be a Yid. That's not what it means to be a Jew. What it means to be a Jew is to recognize that I am part of this entire spectrum called Klal Yisrael. And it's always been a spectrum and it will always be a spectrum. And to think that somehow, some way, I could only love every Jew if they look like me, pray like me, practice like me, then I don't understand what it means to be a Shemini Atzeret Yid, then I don't want to know what it means, then I, like that ger, also don't know the meaning of the Regel Echad, the meaning of the Shemini Atzeret. Kasha alai prei daschem. Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't say Kasha alai prei dasenu. He doesn't leave us. We don't leave him. The only people who leave each other is us. We leave one another. We forsake one another. Unfortunately, we marginalize each other sometimes without even realizing it. And that's our avoda during these weeks. You know, it's easy to learn more Torah, and it's easy to give more tzedakah, and it's even easy to do more acts of chesed. Avas Yisrael is the hardest thing, but it's also the very thing that is going to bring the geula. And it's the very thing that'll tilt the scales in the favor of Am Yisrael. So let's together, over the course of these 3 weeks, although we're already 1 week down, we have a little bit more than 2 weeks until Tisha B'Av, and there's so much you could accomplish in 2 weeks. So much we could do. If we just work on our Avas Yisrael just a little bit, find a way to just become a little bit more accepting, find a way just to become a little bit more loving, recognize that Klal Yisrael is and always has been that spectrum of hashkafas, of ideologies, of levels of observance, and how we really have to learn a sense of respect, a sense of acceptance. We don't have to agree with everything. In fact, we could vociferously disagree with many things, but there has to be love even in the midst of disagreement. And there has to be a certain level of acceptance that people are entitled to their opinions, their hashkafas, their ways of life, their forms of practice, even if it is at odds with what I don't have to accept it. I don't have to accept, and I can even argue against it. I can argue against it passionately, but I have to love. There has to be an underpinning of Avas Yisrael in all of that. Perhaps the message of Parashas Pinchas is that Shemini Atzeret can't just be 1 day a year, but we should be Zochem Yirtzeh Hashem to celebrate the Regel Achos, the Yom Tov Every L'Re'acha Kamocha, each and every day. Wishing everyone a good Erev Shabbos and a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh.